New at 6, the Gem City is, of course, a city filled with history, some of which encapsulates the Underground Railroad. As part of the Adams County Bicentennial Speaker Series, Patrick Hodel and Terrell Dempsey will hold a presentation at 6:30 tomorrow evening at John Wood. The series will focus on the history of the Underground Railroad in western Illinois.
I think Quincy has, it's sort of been overlooked by history in the state, and it really shouldn't be. It was really quite an important river town, important in abolitionism, and important in a number of other ways.
Hodel added that Dr. Richard Eel's house on Jersey Street in Quincy is one of the few locations in town that has documentation of involvement in the Underground Railroad.